African religions, in Christianity, in Buddhism, it does not matter. That's not the subject we're discussing today. We're discussing the greater African spirituality, to be more specific. But all of us are at different stages in terms of our development and our growth. And what I usually find is this concept of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, where people who are at one level and at one stage or at one point of their development, then they begin to take up and pick up stones and throw them down to other children who are on the other side of the road. And by so doing, we have unnecessary casualties, because it does not mean that what you understand and what you have accepted as your cardinal basis of truth, everyone else is forced, must become what I am. And if they don't become that, then they are damned and they must go to hell. I think that kind of thinking on its own kind of puts a spanner into the works and blocks the whole purpose of us growing progressively in terms of sharing information without hindrance. And as you have noticed for the past few days, I created enough chaos to last you for a lifetime when I started asking what is the name of the devil in your own African language. I got interesting answers, by the way. Some gave me some verbs of what he does. Some gave me diabolos, some gave me Satan, some gave me what. But at the end of the day, I think we can agree here just on the onset that we all could not find the name of the devil in our African languages. Problem number one. Problem number two, what is the name of Jesus, again, in our own African language? And then some call him Jesu, some call him Yesu, some call him whatever we want to call him. And again, we discovered that in African languages, again, Jesus is quite new to the continent. So we needed to find the European name that was given to him. And us being Africans, by the way, we are not interested in research. We are not interested in knowing anything more than what has been presented to us. So we have taken that definition as given and we have run ahead with it. Problem number three, when I highlighted what is the name of hell and Gehenna or Sheol in our own languages, then again, there was a whole hullabaloo and chaos in the house. As people now all of a sudden discovered they don't have hell in terms of African languages. They don't have Hades in African languages. And finally, I asked what is the name of the Bible in our African languages. And again, all hell broke loose. And I must be careful as I'm taking you with me again, that you are not all at the same space. It's one thing for you to walk up to me and say, I believe in Jesus and I'm a Christian, and that settles it for me. Well, if you are in the group that is now settled, I think I have nothing more I can say to you. As your education process has become complete and you are happy where you are, may the good Lord of grace be with you. But there are children out there, there are people out there who still don't understand how and what this Christianity and does not make sense. It does not make sense for two reasons. One, the reason that it has been taken as a dogmatic center, where one group of culture has imposed itself on a group of people and everyone else must accept it as the only way that can run and that can work on things. But if you take that as your principle, you walk up to China and you walk up to India, you may find that those cultures are actually non-Christian, yet they are running the world in terms of their technologies. So progress, and some of the poorest countries in the world, some of the most abused countries in the world, some of the most corrupt leaders in the world, both religious and political and economically, are actually Christian leaders. Yes, I've said it. I said it. Some of the most corrupt presidents that we have, they are actually Christian. Some of the most wicked thieves in Africa who are stealing our resources are not pagan. They are Christian. So the whole idea of Christianity becoming an answer and a solution to everything cannot be taken as a blanket statement. For there are people in our midst and people amongst the Christian group who have claimed to become Christian and actually have lived less than Christianity. Same thing. There are people who are rich and filthy rich, and they've used African indigenous knowledge, African witchcraft and everything else to benefit themselves at the expense of killing children and killing nature and etc., using voodoo and witchcraft and other forms, using the whole talisman things for their own destruction. It's a fact that we must talk about. And some of the most wicked people, again, are Islamic leaders who would rather be gathering millions to themselves and still be abusing the servants who are in their own houses. So I want us maybe to push this conversation to a higher platform where we are not discussing religions and which one is superior to another. But I want us to zoom in particularly and discuss African spirituality. And even so, I want to focus strictly maybe for the purpose of this presentation on our greater African people. Having said that, we need therefore to understand that the reason people become religious is not for formality. We don't become religious because we are bored in our houses. We don't become religious because we don't have friends. We don't want to become religious because we want to hear a public speaker talking. There are many professional public speakers out there, many motivational professionals that are out there that can give you what you are looking for. I'll define it for you simply. People end up in African traditional, indigenous belief systems because they are looking for the spiritual. People end up in Islamic things, knocking their heads on the walls and knocking their heads on the floors until they have pimples on their heads there because they're trying to have access to Allah. May peace rest upon him. People have run up to churches to give away their monies and everything else, not because they don't need that money, because they are also looking for an access into spirituality. If you walk up to the praying wall in Jerusalem, you'll find these Ashkenazis, these Jews that have rolled their heads, and far be it that they are Jews, rolled their heads on the side, knocking their heads on that ancient wall, saying their prayers. It has nothing to do with prayer. They are looking for financial means. They are looking for spirituality. They are looking for common connections. People feed their lions. People feed their rats. People feed their cats, their cows. Some drink milk that they've given to the elephants, their Buddhas and their gods, for one reason again. People are looking for spirituality. The Freemasons and the Illuminatis lock each other in houses, lock up all the doors, do rituals there, whether it is human sacrifices, or it is blood, or it is covenants, or it is what, or rules of secrecy and privacy in their greater space of Freemasonry. Why? Because they are looking for economic power, and the economic power will give them political power. Political power will give them access to the people. Again, they are looking for spirituality. So let's agree right on the onset that the greatest need of any human being living on the face of the earth, it is that of being spiritual. Even the atheist who says, I don't believe in nothing. Well, don't be so much in a hurry. If you don't believe in nothing, you believe in yourself. So you can also convert yourself into your own God. But at the end of the day, you're hoping that through yourself, you can find yourself and have further understanding of yourself. And by the time you understand yourself, you may just discover that you also start believing. So those who worship the sun, those who worship the moon, those who worship the rivers and the mountains and everything else, people are looking for spirituality. Let me start off my cracking knots by pointing my gun and Nobukeri straight onto the head of the African who accepted Christianity. And we accepted Christianity on the basis that it was bringing for us solutions. Not only academic solutions and political solutions, but it was also bringing for us spiritual solutions. This God that we heard them talk about, who was able to open up the seas, who was able to make manna fall from heaven, who was able to have water from the rock, who was able to make people march around the city and it collapsed, who was able to touch the blind and they can see, put his ears on the ears of the deaf and they can hear, and etc. And all those who were hungry, he broke bread and he fed them. And that gospel on its own was exciting and is exciting. Why? Because it is bringing solutions to the African person who is struggling at various levels. And Christianity therefore comes around with these seeming solutions. The most embarrassing thing that I should admit as a minister of the church for the past 33 years, it is that we have a church that is full of doctrines. It has a form of godliness, but denies the power of the very gospel itself. For if we're still functioning in the unction, let me speak like a theologian now. If we're still functioning in the unction of the apostolic faith, where handkerchiefs were healing, shadows were healing, words were spoken, visions were happening. Those that were in false prophets were identified. Those that were demon possessed were identified, and healing was brought to the people. If we were practicing that kind of Christianity, there was no need for this program to run. But we have remained with a system that looks like it is godly. When you get closer to the system and say, can you perform in the wavelength at which your God wants to perform, you may just find that we actually believe in God. We believe in Yahweh. We believe in Allah. We believe in everything else except that He does not have the resources. He does not have the solutions that we want. Then when He cannot perform, we come around again and say, He cannot perform because you don't believe. He cannot perform because He says, wait. He says, I don't want. Or He says, I will do it in the future. We all come up with beautiful theological questions. I want us to, for this afternoon, to do something that is very, very simple. Very simple. Please sit up straight and put on your thinking caps as I take you through a small little parable. I want to call this the Parable of Spirituality 101, according to Maponga J. The Parable of Christianity 101, according to Maponga J. So all of us, we have these small little gadgets we hold in our hands, which we call cell phones, or we call them mobile phones. These small little pocket phones. For you to have a phone in your hand, it must, and for it to function, it must have a few things that are in place. And before you go very far, every good phone that you have, before we even start talking about the phone, we need to start talking about something like this. And let me for this afternoon, just maybe take my seat nicely, and I will sit like an old man who is teaching parables to young children, so that even the youngest amongst us can begin to understand. Before we talk about cell phones, we need to talk about something like this. This is power. This is a power cable that I need to put here on my desk here at the bottom for me to get power. And that's for another day. I can take you through the power process. That here in my house, there's power here, 3-pin plug on the wall. That is taken from my distributor in the garage, where there is my DB box, my distribution box that is in the garage there for my house and the utensils that I use in my house. But that DB box is also connected to the transformers that are outside, which are like for a certain amount of streets. And from the transformers there, you also have the transformers that are in the city that have bigger voltage. From the transformers in the city, you have the transformers that are with Eskom. And Eskom then has the power station. Now, the power station power cannot function here in its voltage, because that power station will burn not only the phone, will burn me and burn the house and burn all the neighbors that are here, because that power is too much power. So what you do is that you step down the power from the power station to the transformers, to the smaller transformers, to the street transformer, to the house transformer, to the house socket. And the house socket, I must still put another adapter that reduces the 230 volts there into the gadget itself. And the gadget, some of the gadgets actually have another transformer that further steps down that current so that actually it can function right here. Now, many of us, when we are talking about spirituality, we think that it is a plug and go, where you want to walk into a power station and say, Lord, please plug into me, plug into me. If the Lord plugs into you, if the universe plugs into you, you will burst, you will die, you will collapse from pain and anguish that you cannot measure. Too much knowledge brings too much trouble. That's why Moses, when he wanted to see God, God looks at Moses and says, no man can see me, no man has seen me and has lived. Therefore, you need to understand that there is a step down of